Okay, Gene Haas has joined us up here, and along with Tony Stewart, he owns this race team, and they're the 2011 NASCAR Sprint Cup Series champions. And Gene, congratulations on this championship. How do you feel?
Well, it's an awesome day. It's really hard to get to this point, and it kind of leaves you speechless.
Take questions now for Gene. Questions for Gene Haas? Right over here to the far right. Behind you there, Lenny, and then Bob Pockers.
Brian Nelson, Motor Racing Network. Gene, this is a team that was struggling to be in the top 35 just a few years ago, and enter Tony and his people, and now you've got a Sprint Cup Series championship. Can you kind of talk a little bit about that transition and what it's meant to you?
Well, I've been doing it for 10 years in the Sprint Cup Series. It's hard. I think when you enter it, you have these expectations that you can run with the big dogs, and that's a lot harder to do than you think. But like any organization, you really do have to pay your dues. You have to spend your time. Talk to an awful lot of people when we first started, and kind of thought it'd be easier to do than I thought. But we just kind of dove in and blindly, and had a lot of help from Rick Hendricks. He was very thoughtful about what he told me. His words were, I don't know why you want to get in this sport, but if you want to be in this sport, I tell you what, I'm going to help you lose as little money as possible. So that was his kind of words of wisdom, and so he partnered up with us, and we went forward from there. And in racing, things don't always work. There's always changes. There's, when we first started out, it wasn't a great time to enter the sport because it was kind of somewhat in the height of its popularity. Drivers were at a premium. Most people in the garage don't put a lot of faith in a new team, so you have to spend your time just earning their respect. And even that doesn't cut it. So many teams fail. People spend huge amounts of money to try to get to this point. And we just kept plugging away. And I think we weren't doing that well, as you pointed out. We had two cars. It's tough when you're in that bottom 35 range. And so you just make changes. And thanks to Chevrolet, and introduced us a little bit to Tony Stewart, and Tony saw what we were doing. We had good relationships, good equipment, and I think he appreciated that. Tony was ready to go beyond being a driver, and so that's how it was all born.
Congratulations, Darian.
Thank you.
Bob, you want a question for Gene there, and then we'll hear from Darian?
Bob Hocker, Sing Daily. I mean, what did you think when your people said, we have this idea, we want Tony Stewart to own half this team and go from there?
Well, Tony Stewart's a superstar. We knew that. And, I had basically, as we said, back at our shop, I had the jack stands. And Tony Stewart was the driver of the car, and he could do that. And unfortunately, you need a wheelman. And you can have all the best equipment in the world, and without a good wheelman, you really don't have a whole lot. So it just seemed like it was an opportunity. Actually, I thought Tony was a little crazy for doing it. But Tony's a little bit smarter than you think sometimes, and he obviously saw some potential in what we did. He has a lot of great relationships. Like, we had a lot of great relationships with Hendricks, so we had good equipment. Tony had good people, and like everything else, today proves all that right.
We're also joined by Championship Crew Chief Darian Grubb. And Darian, just a terrific run you guys had in the chase, winning 5 of 10 races. And I don't think there's been a better performance under clutch circumstances than it was by the 14 team here tonight. Your thoughts about winning the championship?
5 out of 10. That's pretty damn impressive, don't you think?
It's 500, my friend.
Don't even really need to talk. It was just fun, honestly. We had our ups and downs with the Dover and Kansas and some of the others, but just the team rallying around when we had bad days and never giving up, and then Tony never giving up either, and then just what he's done driving a race car has been just extremely impressive to me. He's been the one to go 3 and 4 wide when everybody else is just scared and lifts. So I think he went out and just earned this championship.
Questions now for Darian and or Gene. We'll get back into the queue here, and we'll go with Lee, and then Dave, and then over to Greg.
Congratulations, gentlemen. Darian, I got to ask, I mean, how does a guy who wins a championship, pulls out 5 races out of 10, just everything you accomplish, find himself without a job at the end of the year? I mean, the whole thing is just baffling.
Yeah, it still is to me, honestly. Not really sure what's going to happen now, but I was told early on in the chase before Charlotte that I wasn't going to be here next year. So we just kept fighting, doing everything we had to do every week, and it didn't change anything what the outcome was going to be. We fought as if we were going to fight to win this championship, and we did it. Now let's just see in this coming week how things change.
Let's go with Dave, and then over here to Greg. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, Darian, Dave Rodman, NASCAR.com. So, again, what have you had any conversations with anyone else since you were given that news? And obviously, so the door is still open to remain with the Stewart Haas organization?
As far as the latter part, I'm not sure. I had a lot of conversations with a lot of people, telling them, please give me the courtesy of waiting until tonight to see what we could accomplish. And now that we've done that, I guess we'll start talking, but we'll do a little celebrating first.
Go over here to Greg. Go ahead, Greg.
Along that same line, how long? Hi, Darian, over here. Greg Engel, NASCAR Examiner. Along that same line, do you have a mindset? Are you going to wait till after Thanksgiving? You're going to start talking tomorrow? You just and what are your personal feelings? Do you want to stay within the organization?
Originally, I always wanted to stay within the organization. That's the reason I came here, is to help build something special. And I think we've done that. We made the chase all 3 years, and we had a shot at winning the championship all 3 years. And then now this year, being able to pull it off, we've accomplished our goals, and that's what we wanted to do. As far as the timeline, I'll let you know later. We're just going to plan to celebrate, talk, see what happens from there.
Let's come down here to Jenna and then Bob. Right here, Sammy.
Jennifer AP. Darian, you said that Tony's been the one to go 3 and 4 wide when other people are scared and they lift. And he really drove that way all night, it seemed, tonight. And maybe the last 5-6 weeks he's been like that. Did he turn it up to a level? Had you seen him drive this way before?
He did it before the chase even started. If you look back to Atlanta, I think it was he's talking about how good we made the car there, and he drove from 20th to 3rd. And we didn't tell him until after the race. We didn't make a single change to the car for the last 3 stops, just 4 tires and go. And he went out there and did that, drove it from 20th to 3rd. And I think that's one of those true moments where he realized that we can do it. The cars are good. Everybody behind him at Stewart Haas Racing is incredible. We had really strong people behind us, and just go out there and put all the things we've worked on all year, all 3 years. That's in our arsenal. Matt Borland and all those guys, they've built speed in these cars, and the Hendrick chassis and the Hendrick engine has been really good, but what we do to it after we get it has been even better. So we're really looking forward to thanking everybody, celebrating, and enjoying it.
Let's go with Bob, and then we'll go to Bruce and then Ed.
Bob Pocker, Sing Daily. For Darian, I mean, what did you feel was the key for your organization to come back after the performances at Dover and Kansas? And then also, can you talk about do you know exactly what happened to cause the damage at the start of the race to the grill?
Yeah, as far as the damage at the start of the race, we're not really sure. I know the 22 lost transmission and drive shafts. Evidently, some piece of that, he was in front of us there, went in and just went through the grill, and luckily did not get the radiator. There was no debris or anything in the ductwork, but Jeff Mendring and the guys did a really good job putting it back together. Then the next restart, Tony hit the 00 just because of how aggressive he was being, and the 00 checked up, and it ripped the left side of the nose open, so we had to come in the next stop there and fix that after we'd already got back into the top 20 again. So just keeping fighting with all those small things, it was just a true team effort all night to be able to fight our way back up through there.
Bruce Martin with SportsIllustrated.com. 2 things. How do you characterize the transformation in Tony's personality the last couple of weeks? Because he really came out just raring to go for this thing, and I got to follow up after that.
That's Tony. That's what Tony always has been, and just being able to be in the forefront and always be in the media, he's able to unleash that and go out there and have some fun. So that's what we see of him every day on the racetrack, and that's what I get to deal with on the radio all the time and things too. So that's the true Tony that everybody knows and loves, and we know he can go out there and be a champion, and he did it for the third time tonight.
And also, there were times this season where Tony was obviously frustrated with the way he ran, with the way the car ran, and then in these last couple of weeks, he was just dynamite. And I even think Jenna said during the race, how come he doesn't drive like this all the time?
Yeah, everybody has that in them at some point. I know I was frustrated many times this year as well, and it's one of those things you have to dig down deep and fight. If you're going to do this 38 weeks a year, you better be able to take the lows and the highs and not get too upset and just keep a nice even keel and just keep fighting against what you're fighting against. And luckily this week it got narrowed down to we're fighting just against the 99, and we just beat all 42 competitors to the win and guaranteed that championship.
Go ahead, Ed.
Ed Hinton, ESPN.com. Darian, you said at New Hampshire after y'all had won 2 out of 2 there that the moment back in August at Michigan when Tony said it doesn't matter whether we make the chase or not sort of lit a fire and a lot of people redoubled the efforts. Looking back on that now with the way y'all have performed, might that sort of slap at the team, might that have been the key moment that detonated all of this? And how would you describe y'all's most of the time? Mad at him? How would you?
Honestly, I'm not sure how. About half the team took that as disappointment. Half of them took it just being mad because we do fight hard every week. We try to build winning race cars. It's a tough competition out there now, and you're not going to have a winning car every week, and it's very frustrating to all of us. But after the middle of the season, we just kept having things stack up against us, and we just didn't have those good weeks. It got the best of all of us. We all had just sour attitudes, and that was probably the time whether we didn't really dig in any harder, but it just turned the attitude around to there's no reason for us to have this sour attitude. Let's just keep doing what we know we can do and get fast race cars on a racetrack under Tony and get better, and that's what we did.
Do you think maybe that was the trigger, that one little media moment was the trigger moment?
It definitely could be. I don't know. There's multiple ones of those that's happened behind closed doors and everything too at the shop. So I can't say there's any one moment, but that's about the time frame where everybody just started turning things around. If you look at what the 39 team did and the 14 team as well, we're just a strong organization, and everybody enjoys what they do for a living, and that's why we're here.
Let's go up to the press box. We have a question in the press box. Go ahead.
Nate Ryan, USA Today. Darian, I apologize for the real elementary question here, but does winning the championship, do you think that might make them change your mind and allow you to stay? And if they offered you a chance now to stay, would you take it?
It all depends. We'll just have to do those talks this week and see what happens. But, yeah, obviously this is what I came in to do as a goal, and now I've done that with this team. It's not anything that I did specifically. It's not anything that Tony did. It's not anything that Gene did in the organization. It's the whole group as a whole. We went out and earned this championship, so now we'll just see what comes out of that.
Other questions in the press box?
Follow up to that. Obviously, your team knows the situation. Tony knows the situation. How did you hold it all together for the past 10 races and make it work, especially the past 5 after they notified you? I mean, did you have to meet with the team? Did you have to meet with Tony? I mean, what was the relationship like?
It's just definitely, it was a little tough and strained, but it honestly probably made the guys rally around a little more just because we all felt like we were a team to beat, and we wanted to prove that. So we just did it. Everybody went out there and kept doing their jobs, kept their head up, and didn't let it drag anybody down. We may have even gotten closer as a team after that. We had a couple of excursions where we went out as a team and did some activities and had a lot of fun and really enjoyed it.
Any other questions in the press box?
No additional questions.
Let's come back downstairs. Let's go right here to Dan. Raise your hand there, Dan.
It's for both of you. How would you describe working with what it's like to work with Tony? Simple question.
Well, Tony's taken on a hat of being an owner, and unfortunately, there's a lot of responsibilities that come with that. As far as personnel changes and personnel problems, human resources and paying paychecks and all that stuff. So, Tony takes that to heart, and I think it can upset the way he races. So, myself and Joe Custard and all the management at Stewart Haas Racing, what we really tried to do, I think, in the last year or so was to isolate him from that, just to make sure that Tony just concentrated on the driving part. And Tony works really hard at driving. He also works really hard at working with sponsors. I mean, I've never seen a guy that spends every single day either driving the car or going to sponsors or dealing with his other businesses. Now, like I say, like Joe and Brett Feud, we all really try to isolate Tony from that stuff and just let Tony drive the car, because we think that's really what he does, and he does best. But he's also pretty good to work with sometimes.